Nearly every Democratic candidate for the presidency whose name does not end in Clinton has been speaking out recently about how the DNC's plans for the Democratic debates seems rigged to develop the specific candidate that they have wanted this entire time to win out overall. First, we have O'Malley, not getting a lot of coverage, obviously, for his campaign, not doing very well in the polling. But he recently said this sort of rigged process has never been attempted before. Now, he's talking about the fact that the DNC is making it so that you are not going to have a debate anytime soon. And when you start to have Democratic debates, you're not going to have very many of them. Now, he is calling for more debates. Sanders is calling for more debates. Hillary Clinton cannot be reached for comment on it.
Ah, really?
Because if you're the candidate with the name recognition and the resources and the lead, why would you want to mix things up in a debate? Why would you want to stand on a stage and use courage to defend your policy positions and to outwit and outthink your political opponents? Why would you want to do that?
She rarely even talks about her policy position, so this isn't surprising to me at all.
Yeah.
But the fact that the Democratic Party would do this is so egregious because it shows you that, I mean, you have two parties in this country that are dominant, right? And they just decide who we're going to elect, who is going to be the next president. I mean, the rigging is the worst part of undermining the democratic process. They should have as many debates as possible because we should know what they stand for. We should know what their weaknesses are. We should know what their flaws are. We should have as much information available to us as possible so we can make the correct decision when it comes to voting.
Yeah.
But the fact that the Democratic Party, the DNC, has already decided that Hillary Clinton's the front runner and they don't really want to give anyone else a chance or a shot is disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, from the point of view of someone who cares about politics and certainly cares about the outcome, it seems like it'd be a great idea to have almost weekly debates. Have a debate about the economy, and then one about, the Middle East, and then one about the climate.
Right.
Like, they might end up being very boring, and they probably won't get the views that Donald Trump's debacle, at the last debate would get. But it certainly seems like it'd be a good thing for the party.
They have a total of 6 debates until the presidential election. That's it, 6 debates. That might sound like a lot.
Yeah.
I know, I'm surprised they got the 6 as well, but they have, 4 debates prior to the primaries taking place? That's nothing.
Yeah,
That's nothing.
And if they're later debates, then they don't necessarily matter as much. The longer you wait, the less effect it'll have. Now, asked if he agrees, that was O'Malley. Sanders says, I do. He says that the debates are rigged. And he particularly said, at a time when many Americans are demoralized about politics and have given up on the political process, I think it's imperative that we have as many debates as possible. I look forward to working with the DNC to see if we can significantly expand the proposed debate schedule. Further, I also think it is important for us to debate not only in the early states, talking about the Iowa and New Hampshire problem we've been discussing, but also in many states which currently do not have much Democratic presidential campaign activity. And think about from the point of view of the party, and by that I don't mean the leadership, who, again, wants one candidate that they can throw all of their money into, but from the actual people around the country who identify as Democrats. Like, we're going to have this long period where the only debates that happen and that get covered are Republican debates. And so the news is going to be about them and what they're doing.
That's a great point.
And nobody's really going to be talking about the Democrats. And look, if Hillary Clinton doesn't want to go to the debate, fine, go to a fundraiser or something. Have the debate anyway. Have O'Malley and Sanders and Biden, if he wants to go, and a couple of other candidates, and have people watch it and say, well, where the fuck is Hillary Clinton? Apparently, she didn't have the balls to show up. That seems like it's good for those candidates because it gives them more exposure, and it's good for the Democratic Party as well because it provides a very necessary counterpoint to the nonsense that we're hearing from the Republicans.
Absolutely.
Well, it's weird that to run for president, you don't necessarily campaign where the people are. Right? Because they don't campaign in California, where most people live, right? And so we don't really...
Or Texas, necessarily.
Right.
Yeah. Because, California is a blue state. They don't really feel... in terms of the primaries, they probably
Because it's a
should.
winner-take-all situation in each state. So if they would just get rid of that and have the popular vote, it's so funny to try to, when I travel and you just describe how our voting works, the freest country in the world. They're like, so people say, so the guy who, do you guys get to vote for president in America? Well, kind of, sort of. We vote for a guy who votes for a guy.
Right.
It's called the Electoral College. Well, the guy who gets the most votes, he wins all the time, right? Well, kind of, not all the time, no.
Yeah.
Sometimes if the oil comes out of the ground a different way, George Bush is going to win. Really, so it's kind of we're doing, it's the electoral...
94% of the time.
So
the guy who gets the most
94.
votes wins.
So the electoral system, again, needs to be gotten rid of. I think it's a bad thing. It takes the campaign away from where the people are. If we just had, again, we all see how it works for the Congress, right? The gerrymandering has taken the Democrats get over 1 million votes more cumulative, coast to coast, and they don't have the representation, right? So that's what it's just weird that we have this system where Iowa has this much influence over the Iowa. Nothing happens in Iowa. I've been all over Iowa. Believe me, shit ain't happening, and it's like it's. And
maybe they have more time to think about politics then.
Yeah, not really, and they're not big readers. I don't know what the literacy is in Iowa, but I've been
Iowa under the bus.
I played Iowa all the time. It was like I had fun doing it, but it was like, hey, the comedians here, get the readers in the tunnel. They don't want them to come to the shows. I don't know where they're keeping the readers in Iowa. But anyway, of course, I'm joking halfway, but Iowa's pretty rural. They really aren't representative of the country or the country's problems. Are they really?
New Hampshire's barely representative of the Northeast, which isn't necessarily all that representative of the country. And I'm from the Northeast. I acknowledge that.
I mean, I would like to see the presidential candidates go to Los Angeles and San Francisco and Chicago and Miami and Dallas and Houston and Atlanta. These are the places, and Minneapolis. These are the places I want to. That's where the people are. I want you to have to sell your policies where people are. And if we got rid of the Electoral College, I think that would happen. I'm sure there's a lot of people going to tell me where I'm wrong below.
Yeah, obviously there would be a lot of consequences of it. And I think that any sort of major reform like that would require other reforms. There are various things.
But what is the point of the Electoral College anymore? It's just to ensure powerful people get to hold on. It's because it's no longer one vote, one person. Places like. Go ahead.
First of all, I want to go back to what the DNC is saying here because I think it sort of gets to what you're saying. You want the people to be the ultimate arbiter, obviously, which seems to make sense in a democracy, of course.
It's a democracy.
Although technically it's a republic, so it's going to be somewhat removed from direct democracy. That totally makes sense. But we at the very least want people to have a lot of exposure to the information, the positions, the ideas. That's the whole purpose of having these debates. And so I think it's ironic that when the DNC responded to these claims that the system is rigged, they say that there's going to be plenty of other forums and opportunities for the candidates to make their case to the voters, which says to me that they're talking about campaign ads.
Yeah,
which
that's
is,
exactly
again,
right.
simply meaning whoever gets the most money. So you want the people to be the ultimate arbiter. DNC doesn't necessarily have any interest in the people. They have the interest in, well, look, we still are pretty competitive in fundraising. I don't know how, but we are. So why don't we just try to ride that out to a win? And right now, that means that Hillary Clinton would probably win. If it was simply we stack up our dollar bills and compare the two, then she would probably win. And that seems fine to DNC spokesman Holly Shulman, apparently. But I don't think it's the best thing for our country.
The problem with this candidacy of Hillary Clinton, or the problem with politics right now, is that used to be the Republicans were the party of Wall Street and big business and the military-industrial complex, and now the Democrats go to Wall Street with their hand out too, and now this is why we have this crony capitalism, this economy that works for only the 1%. I don't know how we break that. Oh, wolfpack-com.
Just start typing in the words and the dashes, and eventually you will get to it.
You'll find it. No, I mean, I think that it's a perfect example of what's wrong in our country right now. The fact that politicians have to rely on campaign ads and they have to rely on how much money they can raise in order to be viable candidates. And so if that's the DNC's argument, well, the DNC is a huge part of the problem. And you're right, Jimmy. It doesn't matter which party they're from. Democrats and Republicans, they're both bought off. And so they're going to go to where the money is, and they're going to represent the corporations. They're not going to represent the people.
Which is why in Florida, Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, the SEC, is supporting basically a Republican over Alan Grayson, a guy who we should be heralding as our liberal champion, Alan Grayson. She's picking the other guy because he's more friendly to Wall Street.
Right.
And this is a payback to Wall Street. So they got to screw over a real Democrat to get a Republican elected into the Senate. Into the Senate.